So, first of all, I'd like to give thanks to the Lord for giving me the great honor and blessing to be among you tonight. I think it's not that I deserve it at all, but I think we are all here for the same reason, because we are praising the Lord, right? And we are thanking our Mother in heaven for being so great with us. We know so little about it, but here we are trying to learn a little more. Before I can do anything, I would like to read to you a little bit of the word that I just opened. I like to always share my testimony in the spirit of the word of the Lord. So I open on James 1:2. Consider yourselves fortunate, my brothers and sisters, when you meet with every kind of trial. For you know that the testing of your faith makes you steadfast. Let your steadfastness become perfect with deeds, that you yourselves may be perfect and blameless without any defect. If any of you is lacking in wisdom, ask God who gives to all easily and unconditionally, but ask with faith, not doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave driven and tossed on the sea by the wind. Such a person should not expect anything from the Lord, since the doubter has two minds, and his conduct will always be insecure. Let the believer who is poor boast in being uplifted, and let the rich one boast in being humble, because he will pass away like the flower of the field. The sun rises and its heat dries the grass. The flower withers and its beauty vanishes. So too will the rich person fade away even in the midst of his pursuits. The word of the Lord. So, to give you an idea of what I'm doing here, I'm going to give you a little background about myself. As you heard already, I was born in Colombia, in a small coffee growers town up in the Andes Mountains. All my family are coffee growers for generations, and they are originally from Spain. And I grew up with all the Catholic traditions, all the teachings of the church, in a very large family. In my home we were 10, and every one of my uncles and aunts, they had 18, 20 children, and so we had a pretty large family. And I grew up in a very happy childhood, and when I was 14 years old, I moved to Bogota, the capital of Colombia, to finish my high school education. And once I finished my high school education, I got married before I was 20 years old and moved to Germany, to Hamburg. And I went to school at the University of Hamburg, studied arts, and became an actor and a music composer. My two sons were born in Hamburg. I lived there for 6 years, and in 1976 I moved to the US. So I came first to New York and worked in theater in Manhattan, on Broadway and off-Broadway, for 2 years. Then I moved to California in 1978, and I became pretty involved with the entertainment industry as an actor, as a musician, screenplay writer, and you name it. All the things that you do trying to survive in an industry like that, which you probably all know that is not easy. So I worked there for many, many years. Then I was signed to Sony Music in New York, that was called CBS Records then, and had a band. I toured all over the world for many years doing records, and then that was my life, acting in movies and TV. And one thing happened after I left my home at age 14, and it was that I left my faith. It was the 60s, and the hippie revolution was on, and I embraced it all. Every little thing that was going on, I was going for. All the Eastern religions, all these pagan traditions that were coming along, all the esoteric sciences, the occult, the astrology, the crystals, the tarot reading, the palm reading, you name it. I was doing everything. And I left my Catholic faith completely. I was not any longer any Christian at all. So when I moved to Germany, I continued getting deeper and deeper into that. And not telling when I moved to California. I'm sure you probably know that California is the world's capital of New Age. Every single New Age prophet is in California because They network all this nonsense from there. So, and I was part of all this. But you know, as you know, New Age is not a movement that is by itself known as a movement, because everybody's competing against each other. The one that sells crystals doesn't get along with the one that sells the candles, because it's competition, you know. So, you know, it's not exactly like a group of people working together, but they group when they have to make the money in one place, and that is California. So now, obviously, it's not the only place, but it's the place that reunites the most. So I was there in a little heaven. I was practicing everything. Every time we were going to do a TV series or do a big production, we would fly to places like Africa or to Malaysia to speak to some sorcerer, someone that was known at the moment. You know, I spent a lot of money to hear lies, and then we come back convinced that we knew the future. And that's the way I turned. My house was decorated with Feng Shui. This is an old tradition from China, made commercial in Japan, and now it's like well known everywhere. My house was decorated like you come into the house, and I had a crystal facing a mirror. And then one of the sofas was facing north. My bed was facing south. And that was channeling the cosmic forces coming in. So if a maid will come in and change the direction of the sofa or move one of the crystals, my whole day will be ruined. Because then everything will be going apart. And that's how much of an idiot I turned to be, you know. But I thought I was the coolest guy. I used to go and visit my relatives in Colombia, and I thought, my God, these people are so behind. They have to learn so much. And I used to counsel them and tell, why don't you get these crystals? Like, come on, let me read the tarot for you. You're doing wrong. My mother was just holding the rosary there while I visited, you know. And every time I left, I'm sure they probably exorcised the houses, you know. Because the devil came in for a visit. But I thought I was the coolest, and I thought all those people, all those Catholics, they were so bad, you know, they were so behind. And the worst part of it is that the devil is so incredible that he was making everything work for me. So I thought everything must be right in my life, because things are going well. And people that are such believers, they're not making it. So this is an amazing illusion, you know, but I think you probably, each one of you here can give a testimony about that, I'm sure. We've been fooled, and many times. So what happens is, after I became that, and I was 46 years old, one of my brothers died in Colombia, 1996. And I went there to his funeral. 2 months later, my mother died. And 3 years before that, I have lost my wife to cancer, my youngest brother in an accident in the Bahamas, and my father at an elderly age. 5 people died in my family in less than 4 years, one after the other. And since I came here tonight to give you a testimony of conversion that happened during a kidnapping experience in the jungles of Colombia, where I went through a mystical experience with the Lord that absolutely changed my life. During that mystical experience, the Lord told me something that I'm going to explain to you now about the dying of my relatives. Going a little ahead, but I'm going to give you this information. The Lord told me that we human beings, we are usually so hard of heart that the whole world can die around us and we won't feel anything, because one very close to us has to die in order for us to feel the pain of death. Because we can sit at home, sit in our little sofas watching TV and see the whole world being blown up. And we are impressed and sorry, but we don't feel the pain of it unless someone very close to us is involved. So the Lord says, when someone dies very close to you, you receive a grace from God, because you have the opportunity to reflect upon your own life, upon your own death, and also to reflect upon your relationship with God. It's a gift. In my particular case, I didn't receive any grace because I believed in reincarnation. That's how badly I was doing.